to the Powerhouse 616 show. I know, I'm a fucking liar. And this accent might be offensive to someone. Hi, sorry, it's been 3 weeks and I said it'd be a day. And just don't take me at my word, and I'm gonna stop promising things because apparently I can't keep them. So I issued an open challenge to Not Beast, the writer of Angels and Demons, to do a versus against my fanfiction characters, Hawk, Stone, River, and Panther. Now, is this a shameless thing to get more attention to my own story, which is admittedly extremely fucking short, and I barely update it because inspiration isn't exactly flowing at the moment for where that goes. Maybe. Shameless plug for that fanfiction, yes. To gain more publicity, yes. Because I actually want to see who would fucking win, yes. Will I think that he will actually accept the challenge? No fucking way in hell that he will accept that. I've already piggybacked off him enough. Anyways, into his actual story. Chapter 10. She had just walked away, the last remaining family member he had. He sprinted to the door and knocked it down, causing it to crash to the floor. He was standing on the door in the middle of the hospital corridor, patients and doctors staring at him in shock. He turned quickly to the nearest one, a petite nurse that was helping someone down the corridor in a wheelchair. You, where did the woman that came out of my room go? She looked back at him with a confused look. Sir, you're the first person to come out of that room other than the doctor. No, I wasn't. Which way is the entrance? Sir, I don't think you should be walking around yet. You should go back to your bed and... No, where is the entrance? He said. No, where is the entrance? He said, drawing out the words. Oh, I scared my lizard. She hesitantly pointed down the corridor, and Demon instantly began sprinting in that direction. He felt pain all along his side and through his legs, pushing through the pain in hopes of seeing his mother again. He sprinted along the corridors, following the signs to the entrance, much to the chagrin of the hospital staff. Security guards continuously tried to stop him, only to be quickly outmaneuvered as he wall ran across the corridors of the hospital. He felt like passing out before he knew he wasn't going to. He had to see his mother. He busted through into the entrance area and looked around hopefully. Unfortunately for him, he couldn't see anyone that looked anything like the woman in his room. Worse than that, the security guards finally caught up and tackled him to the floor. This is for your own good, sir, was the last thing he heard before he blacked out. 1 hour later. Demon slowly came back into consciousness and found that he was back in the same room as before. This time, he was strapped to the bed. He looked up and saw that Ozpin was standing against the wall, sipping coffee as always. Mr. Demon, he said plainly, not moving much. Ozpin, you wouldn't be able to get me out of here. Soon, but first, we must discuss something. When you broke out of your room, you claimed there was a woman with you. There was, he retorted, confused that no one would believe what he was talking about. Instead of replying, Ozpin pulled out his scroll, tapping a few buttons, and brought up the security footage. As Demon watched, it showed that he was lying on the bed before getting up, cutting the sheets to form a makeshift blindfold. But what happened next made no sense to him. Instead of a woman coming into view, the demon in the video just straight up charged out of view and showed up busting out of the hospital corridor a second later. That's not what happened, he said, trying to comprehend what was happening. Mr. Demon, it's extremely common for people to experience visions after what happened to you, especially considering how long you were out for. Demon's face dropped at the knowledge that the person he saw was just an illusion. How long? He asked. No more life left in his words. 1 month. Demon's head slumped at last. The last time it only lasted half that long. Can I ask you, what possessed you to fill your system with enough military-grade stimulants for 6 people of your size? Ozpin asked, moving his glasses down to sit in front of his nose. With all due respect, sir, I would have died if not had been for those stims, and Rosalina would have been dead as well. Then he remembered their last situation. Is Rosalina alright? Yes, your teammate is fine thanks to you, but how could you survive that long with so much stimulants running through your body? Your heart should have collapsed after the first 10 seconds with that much stress. I've used the stimulants for the past 1.5 years. After that, my body accepts them better than when I started, but still has some negative effects. Such as the eyes, stated Ozpin, smirking a bit. How did you... Demon started before reaching out to touch his eyes, realizing his blindfold was off. He closed his eyes and desperately tried to free himself, pulling uselessly at the straps that held him in place. There's no need to be like that, Mr. Demon. It is okay. Only I and the doctor have seen them, and I assured that she would not speak to anyone about it. May I ask how they turned like that? He had seen his eyes, and his face. No one had seen them for at least a year. His eyes were the biggest problem. What would they think? Well, sir, after the first couple of months of using stims, they slowly became tinted. Well, sir, after the first couple of months using stims, they slowly became... Fuck me. Well, sir, after the first couple months of using stims, they slowly began becoming tinted. After another couple, they just sort of became like they are. I see. I understand now why you wear your helmet all the time. Well, you can leave now if you want. There will be a bullhead waiting for you to take you back to Beacon, said Ozpin, before taking a sip of his coffee and undone his restraints. He walked out of the room, closing it behind him, and leaving the demon to his thoughts. She was just an illusion? No, that can't be right. Demon refused to believe that she was fake. It was all too real. He walked over and put on all his gear, finding that it smelled like someone had washed it. Before putting his helmet on, he decided to at least clean up, after not having washed in ages. He looked over at the mirror in the bathroom, to the side of his room, beginning to wash his face with cold water. As he washed, he couldn't help but look into his own eyes, remembering how he got the name Demon in the first place. When he stared at his eyes, a monster stared back at him. He no longer had pupils, or an iris, or even the white around them. His eyeball was entirely a dark shade of red, blood red. It was true that it only started after he began using the stims, but he was only a recorded case in which it happened. He pulled on his helmet and activated the HUD. After checking his vitals and finding that everything was optimal, he reached over and checked all his weapons. His pistol had somehow been reloaded, and fresh clips were sitting next to it, as was the same with all his other weapons. He began walking for the door, before remembering he left his necklace. He turned and looked over to his bed to find something strange. Sitting on the pillow was his necklace, but underneath it was something he hadn't seen in many years. Underneath his necklace was a picture of the day of his first birthday. He was being held by his mother, who was smiling at the camera, and his uncle was next to them, another wide grin plastered on his face. He turned it over and found a message on the back. My little hawk, I'm sorry for doing this to you, but I cannot come back to you for some time. It has been many years, and I and I myself thought that I had lost you. You meant the world to me. The fate of this world hangs in the balance, but know that I will come back after all this is done. Show this picture to him. He will know you're not lying after that. Mom. Demon stared back at the message, after a few seconds before tears filled his eyes. He sat crying in his room for a solid 10 minutes before finally being able to hold them back. He tucked the photo into a pocket under his chest plate, slightly confused at the last line. He picked up all his weapons and slipped them all into their respective places. Keeping his parkour kit turned off, he opened the door and strode through the corridors toward the front entrance again, smiling a bit as the security guards kept their hands above their pistols. He made it out of the front door, becoming slightly blinded by the midday light, and walked to the waiting bullhead. He waved to the pilot, and about a minute later they were flying out to Beacon. He looked out the window at the city that was flowing past below him. So, this is what Vale is. Before I continue, I'd just like to apologize for the way I talk and I read. The way I talk in general is extremely fast, and I kind of get out of breath sometimes. It's just how I talk. Apologies. And also, the way I talk is a bit different. I sometimes skip over words when I talk, not just in like reading fan fiction, but I talk like instead of like saying like, you know, he had done, I'd say he'd done. And like, you know, I sometimes skip over the word the when I'm talking. I'm sorry. It's just how I am. I'm trying to stop it, but it's just how I talk. There's really nothing to do about it. Anyways, back to the story. He had never actually seen the city, so he made a promise that the day... He had never actually seen the city, so he made a promise that the next day he would visit it. As he was thinking about what was being in an actual city again, would be like, he felt the bullhead beginning to descend. It landed and he waved to the driver before walking off to his command pod. When he arrived, he found that it was much the same as it was before, except his Titan wasn't there. He quickly sent a message to Ozpin trying to figure out how he could lose a 15-foot tall Titan. He waited a couple minutes, tuning his weapons, before finally receiving a reply, and when he saw what it was, he facepalmed. 1, because of what it was doing, and 2, because of who had it. He put away his Sidewinder and LMG before walking out of the pod and walking to the combat classroom. As he was walking, he heard the sounds of heavy gunfire coming from the classroom. He made it to the door and saw a sign posted on the door. Warning, combat classes in progress. Without a second thought, he opened the door and was nearly killed by gunfire strafing the classroom. He ducked behind one row of the seats, where every other student was currently huddled. As he waited for the fire to die, he finally popped his head out to see what was happening. He saw his Titan in full combat get-up, chain gun pumping out round after round as Team RWBY and the rest of his team were fighting it from the other side of the arena. They had placed barriers throughout the arena to ensure that they weren't immediately gunned down, and the combatants hesitantly firing back at the beast. He continued watching the battle with interest, checking his Titan's status on his HUD. He laughed when he saw that it only had 2 of its 6 targeting chips activated, and the shields weren't even on. They were getting it easy. He looked around the arena and saw that all the combatants had small bars underneath their heads, some less full than others. He turned his attention back to the fight, and he was severely confused at what happened next. RWBY was wielding a giant scythe that was twice her size and pointed it behind her before firing a bullet out of the barrel that seemed to be integrated with the gun. that seemed to be integrated within the gun. She was sent rocketing across the arena and began slashing at the Titan's feet, seeming to be moving so fast that his eyes couldn't even keep up with her. While that was happening, Blake was firing bullets at his Titan with a katana pistol. Yang was blasting it with shotgun gauntlets, and Weiss was firing streams of white light from her rapier. What the hell is going on? Rosalina was firing at his Titan with her smart pistol, the targeting system allowing her to hit the armored optics to distract it. Kira was the farthest back, firing at his Titan with an amped Kraber, the one he used during the initiation. Well, you take what you can find. He continued watching the battle as the battle went on, and his knowledge of the world was completely destroyed again. His Titan managed to hit RWBY with a massive kick and sent her flying into one of the barriers. But instead of her spine snapping and her body going limp, she just got back up and continued firing at the Titan. What in the bloody world? He looked up at the bars on the wall and felt that RWBY's was a lot smaller than what it was when he last checked. He turned his attention back to the battle and saw that Yang had managed to jump onto his Titan and was beginning to punch the armored cockpit. He watched as the Titan mech staggered back from the impacts. Okay, enough is enough. He tapped a few buttons on his wrist screen and activated the rest of the Titan's targeting chips. It stopped firing for a second before whirring back into action. It grabbed Yang off of its cockpit and flung her across the arena. Its next target was Weiss with the chain. It next targeted Weiss with the chain gun, blasting through the strange glyph barriers that she had put up to protect herself. She was ducked behind cover as her bar hit red, letting the metal beast change targets. It next turned to Blake, firing a cluster rocket, which she nimbly dodged. The problem was she couldn't dodge the next one that was fired at behind her, and she was promptly sent flying from the explosion. Before his Titan could change to another target, he heard 2 shotgun blasts and saw Yang flying across the arena. Her hair was now flaming gold. How the hell is this happening? She was flying towards the Titan, who had just enough time to activate his damage core. The Titan sent its left fist forward, activating a dash to gain more momentum, and Yang met its fist with her own punch. A colossal explosion followed, and Demon had to duck to avoid a Titan's arm hitting him as it flew overhead. He popped his head back up and saw Yang smash into the side barrier and create a crater. He heard a buzzer and Miss Goodwitch walked on stage. His left arm socket was on fire and it collapsed onto one knee to cope with the damage. Good job, Glass, although I didn't tell you to not damage the Titan. Sorry, miss. It was an accident, retorted Yang as she fell from the crater she made onto the floor. Okay, Miss Xiaolong, I want you and your team to help clean up this accident after class. That earned a collection grown from the entirety of Team RWBY. Can you just use your Majesty wand thingy like at the dining hall? Questioned Yang, a smirk crossed her face. Before Miss Goodwitch could respond, the bell signaling the end of the period was heard. All the students filed out of the class, managing to get through the stands. They were now All the students filed out of the class, managing to get through the stands that were now rubble, and only left Team RWBY, Goodwitch, Kira, Rosaline, and Demon in the room. Now when I come back here, I expect to see a clean classroom, said Goodwitch before leaving through a side door on the stage. The 6 girls on stage began moving the rubble to the sides of the stage, grumbling consistently as they did. Well, I'm going to break a nail doing that. I'm going to break a nail doing this, complained Weiss, hesitating to lift anything bigger than her fist. Well, you're lucky, exclaimed Yang. Demon's going to kill me when he finds out I did this. With a smirk, the aforementioned pilot made his presence known. Yes, yes he is. They all stopped what they were doing and looked up to the intruder in the room, and their mouths dropped when they saw it was Demon. "You're alive!" shouted Kira, still not believing what she was seeing. Demon jumped down into the arena, using his parkour kit to slow his fall before looking himself over. I didn't know just yet. I mean, I'm standing here, aren't I? He replied, lacing his words with sarcasm. I don't know just yet. I mean, I'm standing here, aren't I? I don't know just yet. I mean, I'm standing here, aren't I? He replied, lacing his words with sarcasm. Instead of responding, the girls just rushed forward, hugged him all at once. "What are you doing?" he questioned, slightly hesitant to all the attention. They broke off from the embrace before Yang responded. "We all thought you were dead. The doctor said you had little chance of recovery without aura, and that you probably weren't going to make it." "Yeah, what you were thinking!" screamed Rosaline before punching him. "Yeah, what were you thinking?" screamed Rosaline before punching him in the arm. "Do you people seriously have no idea how to say thank you? I mean, seriously!" "You almost died!" she screamed, tears coming to her eyes now. And you would have if I didn't. Your life is more valuable, and no one would have missed me," he stated plainly. The edge. "People do care about you." Demon was taken a bit aback at this statement. He had never really had any friends since the day he joined the militia, barring Josh, and that was only because they'd saved each other's lives. Rosaline began to cry profusely as she covered her eyes with her hands, trying to hide her shame. He didn't know what to do before Yang pushed him forward, causing him to wrap his arms around her as a reflex. Before he could jump away to escape her, she wrapped her arms around him and cried into his shoulder. There. Everything's okay," he said, trying to comfort her while glaring daggers at Yang, who was laughing hysterically. "I think we should go back to our dorm," said Kira, having a better grip on the situation than Demon. He hastily nodded and began walking out of the door, ensuring that his Titan would pick up its arm and follow them to the pod, managing to get out of the large door that was installed on the sides. They walked all the way to their dorm in silence, bar the soft sound of Rosaline crying. They made it to the dorm and he set Rosaline down on her bed. The girl now thoroughly asleep. He saw Sid in the corner, scorched with bullet marks. He gestured to the specter, and Kira just responded by shrugging her shoulders. He went and sat down on his bed, Kira sitting next to him. "So, what happened while I was gone?" "Well, me and Sid managed to find you two after you utterly destroyed those Grimm, and we took you to the hospital. Rosaline was able to make a quick recovery thanks to you, using that weird foam stuff. But they said we weren't going to see you again. She blamed herself apparently for killing you and got depressed for a couple days. We made sure to grab all your stuff from the forest, and I repaired your Kraber. You don't mind if I use it, don't you?" "Nah, it's fine. I prefer my LMG anyways." "Thanks. So back to the explanation. We were designated as Team Drisk by Ozpin, but since you weren't out, Thanks. So back to my explanation. We were designated Team DRSK, or Drisk, by Ozpin, but since you were out, we weren't officially in the school yet. We joined in all the classes and continued as usual, but we had to join Team RWBY when it was time for combat classes, which is where Sid kinda nearly got destroyed. After about a day, Team RWBY got into a brawl with the giant mech stolen by the White Fang, a group of Faunus terrorists. and Miss Goodwitch tried to convince Sid to let us use your Titan. Of course, he tried to stop us at first, until Yang had the brilliant idea of hitting it because she thought it was broken, so we used it anyway. Other than that, not much has changed. Oh, we unlocked our auras, she said, beaming proudly at the last part. People keep saying that. What the hell is an aura? In simple terms, it's a person's soul protecting them. Basically, it's a shield for a person. Oh! And it lets you use these cool things people call semblances. So the magic stuff I saw back in the arena. Yeah. Ruby has her speed, Yang can absorb damage and hit harder, Blade can make shadow copies of herself, Weiss can create glyphs that augment her combat abilities. I see. We haven't unlocked ours yet, but we will eventually. So how exactly would you unlock your aura? Well, Miss Goodwitch unlocked ours with some special ritual thing after her husband told her to, and it just kind of happened. Apparently you can unlock it naturally, but no one knows how it happens. Okay then. Well, I know it's a lot to take in. Just rest on it, she said before walking out the door, probably heading back to class. He looked over and saw Rosaline still asleep on her bed, ironically sucking her thumb. He smiled and went back to turn on Sid. Systems are online at 34%. At least he's still okay. He initiated follow mode and went off to his pod, determined to fix the damage. He arrived and noticed something out of place. The lock on the door was off, and he unholstered his wingman and hesitantly opened the door, quickly bringing it up to shoot anything inside. He activated his pulse and was relieved to see there was no one in there, and nothing was out of place, bar the giant package next to his weapons rack. He walked over and pulled the cover off, revealing multicolored crystals underneath. He picked up the note that was left underneath the basket and read through the message. You might find this to be interesting. Just make sure to stand back a bit when you smash them. Ozpin. He was completely confused and picked up a small red crystal from the package. He looked at it before throwing it at the floor, and was nearly blown up from the blast. Son of a! He was interrupted by the sound of his Strider booting up, the feminine robotic voice of the AI reverberating around the room. Are you alright, sir? Yeah. How are you doing, Vanessa? Well, sir. Except you haven't pulled me into combat for a while. I know. Look, in the next 3 days, I promise to bring you in, okay? Thank you, sir. What are you doing, by the way? Well, the person I now work for sent me this gift basket, filled with explosives. The Strider's limbs whirred as the chassis moved over to inspect the basket. A hum was heard as the Titan scanned the basket. Sir, these are not explosives. They are crystals that seem to contain compounds that I have not seen before. Interesting. Well, you said you weren't doing anything now. So can you run tests on these and see what they can do? I'd be happy to oblige, she replied before grabbing the basket and walking back to her position, hunching over to scan the crystals. As she did, Demon walked over and observed his actual Titan. Its arm was completely ripped off from its socket from the blast, and when he checked the programming, he found that one of the cores was damaged from the sun disconnection. With a groan, he walked over and picked up his plasma torch, beginning the repair on his Titan. He worked through the night, never stopping once, apart from when he heard explosions coming from Vanessa. After he had finished the repairs, he left Vanessa to do her work and made his way back to his dorm. He entered as quietly as he possibly could, making sure to not disturb his teammates. He took off his weapons and laid them to the side of his bed before he slumped down. He smiled as sleep slowly took over his body, his eyelids becoming heavy with sleep. Finally, some rest. He heard an alarm go off. Son of a... So if anyone wants to know what the outro song is to my video. This is it right here, Starset Monster. I absolutely love it. I recommend checking out all their songs. Anyways, have a great